Joining me now, we have Megan Hayes, former special assistant to President Biden and former director of message planning for the Biden administration. So Democrats have high hopes for the midterm elections, especially with what they see as ammunition from this big policy bill. Senator Chuck Schumer is saying that it boosted Democrats' chances of taking back the Senate. So what is the message they need to focus on, and how should they go about countering Republican pushback?
I think they've been doing a really good job during the big, beautiful bill. They've latched on to issues like healthcare and food assistance program. I know it's shocking to Republicans and the MAGA base that people in this country care deeply about their healthcare and want their neighbors to have healthcare and have access to food programs, food assistance programs when they're down on their luck. And so I think that they're doing a good job of doing that. I think they need to continue to talk about those issues as well as affordability, bringing costs of housing down and groceries down, everyday things that people are struggling with. And the affordability message, as we saw resonate in New York City, you agree or don't agree with that race, what's going on there. But the message is really, really transparent across the entire country, and it's the cost of things and bringing affordability to American people.
But here's a question about the health care cuts, because the way this is structured, the Medicaid cuts will not kick in until after the midterm election. So people aren't going to be feeling it, let's say, all of next year gearing up to the election. Is that going to be a winning message then?
I think when you start seeing rural hospitals start closing, when you see these healthcare organizations prepare for these cuts in anticipation, and people lose access to services that they might be able to afford or be able to get at that moment that they won't be able to get when their access is actually cut, I think people will start to notice it. Costs are still going to increase on healthcare. Different pieces of healthcare, it trickles all the way down. So it's not just cutting your Medicaid or your Medicare and your access. It's cutting the funding for rural hospitals, cutting funding to different services that also impact. It's a trickle down effect that I do think people will start seeing in the next year.
So the Democrats already have 2028 in their sights. You have California Governor Gavin Newsom. He was in South Carolina this week trying to address what Politico calls his, quote, California problem, worries that his politics may not translate to moderate parts of the country. Does Newsom have broad enough appeal or the time to change opinions about him? And how would he do that?
I mean, he definitely has the time to have people change their opinions. I don't think most people actually know Gavin Newsom. They know what they read in a headline. They know what Donald Trump is saying because that is what is covered. As you know, from being from California, and I'm also from California, it's super diverse. California is a very big state. It has an extremely large economy. And so what works in California is not going to work in a place like Georgia. It's not going to work in a place like Nebraska or in some of these other different parts of the country. And so what I think his big struggle is going to be is how do you take his beliefs and his positions and make them work for the entire country and just not a state like California. Yeah.
We also have Arizona Senator Ruben Gallego, who's going to visit the Iowa State Fair next month with this big announcement video. Watch.
What we need is someone to look out for you, to fight for you.
Buddy, you're a boy, make a big noise, playing in the street, gonna be a big man someday.
I mean, the Queen's always good with anything, but should Democrats be unapologetic about presidential ambitions? Is being bold the best way to get noticed?
It definitely is the best way to get noticed. There's going to be an extremely crowded field. I went through it in 20 where we had over 20 candidates. In 2020 where we had over 20 candidates that were running. As you remember, the debate stage was extremely crowded. It had to be broken up to multiple nights. So, I mean, people need to get out in front. If they're even slightly thinking about it and they do not have the same name recognition that someone like a Gavin Newsom or a Cory Booker may have, they should be out there and getting in front. I think that it will be interesting. The DNC is still working on who's going to have early primary states, but as you know, going to Iowa, the Iowa State Fair is a rite of passage, I feel like, for both political staff working in presidential politics as well as candidates. It's a really great time, so I'm sure he'll enjoy it, and it's good. It's just good to be continuing the Democratic message.